All right. Good morning, everyone. I've talked about Arise, so I won't take up too much time. I'll just go kind of quickly go through these. We try to help people with the transformation process, getting them from here to there, whether they come in with addiction or mental health, and whatever the issue is, what we try to do is help them get to the other side of that and live a life in recovery. So I went through the services that we offered already. I think the only other thing we do offer continued outpatient services. So once someone completes our IOP or PHP program, they are allowed to continue seeing their therapist or doing family counseling because we can do outpatient as well. And then we do offer services for families. Larry talked about the sober living. So I'm just, in interest of time, I'm just going to kind of get through all of these. We do try to, the way that our groups are and the staff that we have licensed professional counselors as well as addiction counselors. So we do try to address what's underneath the behavior that they're coming in for. So helping them understand whether that's substance use, trauma, mental, emotional things. We try to provide a holistic approach to what we're doing. I'm going to get into emotion coaching. So this is a skill. I've used this to help families with their loved ones. And this basically comes from emotionally focused family therapy work. And so this is a skill that's taught to caregivers, but I've also found it helpful for staff that are either CITs, your counselors in training, or residential assistants or behavioral techs. For them to know how to have a boundary with the clients and how to offer support in a way that's not giving advice or any of that stuff. So the way that I kind of teach this is that emotion is like an elevator. So people that are in a heightened emotional state are usually on that top floor. So whether they're angry, sad, depressed, in a lot of pain, suffering, those emotions, the heightened emotions, are on the top floors. And the door to reason and logic, problem solving, is on the ground floor. So we know our limbic brain is that the emotional center. And if that's on fire, you're not going to be able to access like logic and reason and, problem solve. And so emotion coaching helps people basically get from the top floor down to the ground floor. So that's kind of a little brief overview. Key outcomes in that, especially with clients, we get them to increase cooperating with us, try to avoid things escalating. So it really helps with de-escalation and helping them regulate their emotions. And over time, if the staff or the caregiver or the person that's supporting them practices this skill, over time, they then start to internalize the ability to self-regulate the emotions themselves. But in the moment, they can't do that because they're in a heightened state. So how it works, the supporters' verbal and nonverbal signals can either trigger the release of oxytocin to kind of help the person calm down. The oxytocin gets released from the hypothalamus that binds to the receptor sites in the limbic system. So no, it's no longer like a fire, I'm not, in crisis. Someone shows up to kind of, help me out. And then over time, those efforts actually promote the brain building activity that creates the connection from the frontal lobe to the limbic system. So in the moment, using emotion coaching as a skill, the supporter shows up and acts as a temporary co-regulator, while the sufferer develops and increases their ability to self-regulate. So this is kind of a visual of what I said. In the moment, it seems like, I'm in crisis, there's a fire. That's my limbic system, bells ringing, going off, I'm in danger. And emotion coaching kind of builds a bridge from that point to my frontal lobe so that I can access the information that I need in terms of how to problem solve or how to use logic and support. So the briefest thing is just really two things, which those of us that have been in the field a long time probably do this intuitively, right? Validate and support. But teaching this to someone that's new entering the field, like I said, a CIT or a tech or RA, really can be helpful. Or a parent, like you have a family program or offer family support groups. This is really helpful for parents or caregivers. So first things to validate, we want to convey that sense of understanding of that person's experience and prove that you get it. So that second part is really what I'm going to focus on. It's like proving to the other person that you get it. Because sometimes we can tell people we understand, but it seems like we're speaking a different language, and they'll say, no, you don't get it. So I'm going to show you a skill to validate that kind of proves that you get it. And then you move into support. Two types of support. And sometimes we show up and we do one or the other. But with this emotion coaching, you want to do both. You want to offer emotional support and then some practical support so that the person actually does take action. So I'm going to highlight validation first and talk about what validation is not. So like this cartoon here, will you validate my parking? It's like, you did a great job. It's evenly spaced, nearly perfect right angle. So validation is not reassurance, it's not problem solving, for them. And sometimes, we move right to offering support when someone shows up in crisis. As humans, it's hard to see someone, struggling and not want to throw them like a life preserver or offer some, support. And so this is really, we show up and we either are very reassuring or we're the fixer, right? We want to fix it, and so I'll ask you to think about what's your typical like go-to. And then you want to kind of put that on pause and use this technique. So validation is also not, I can understand why you might think or feel or, want to do this. What's the word that most of us it's a 3-letter word. What do we want to say after that?
1, 2.
I can understand why you might want to use.
Yeah.
What's the 3-letter word? Anybody online? I'll just tell you. I'll take you out of your misery. But
yes.
Right? Most of us, we say like, I get it, I can understand.
I was looking, I thought it was a period.
But think about this, it's not worth it. Like we kind of go right into, again, most of us show up, we're helpers. We want to problem solve, we want to get them through that moment, and sometimes, we end up wondering why they may be resistant or why they're still struggling, they're not coming along with us on the journey. It's like pulling teeth, and it's because we have not validated. We skipped over that step. So with emotion coaching, this skill helps us move from but to because. If we really understand, if we really want to say, I understand why you might feel that way or think that or want to, but we know negates everything that comes before that. So but is transformed into because. And we want to offer 3 examples. So think about, what was that? The movie with the yellow brick road? Because of the wonderful, like 3 because statements. And that shows that you really are validating like what's happening and what they're experiencing like in that moment. So when the external environment mirrors the internal experience, the alarm bells in the brain reduce in intensity. So those 3 because, remember I said emotions like an elevator. So with each because statement that I'm offering, I'm bringing that person down from the top floor to the ground floor. So then when I offer the support, they can really receive it because now I've put the fire out in their limbic system. They can access that frontal lobe information. So you see here, they started out on the 11th floor. The first because brought them to the 8th floor, the second because brought them to the 5th floor, and that third because statement, now they're down, to the 2nd floor. So the door is now open for support because I've gotten you out of this heightened emotional state and brought you back down, to a lower state. So now that's the second step. So the second step, now that I've validated, and I have an example, so it'll come together. Now I can show up and offer the emotional support and the practical support. Emotional support looks like giving someone comfort, reassurance, a sense of togetherness, giving them hope, which I know we all do that really well in this field. And then the practical support. Sometimes that's like, let's go for a walk, providing a distraction, redirecting, especially when clients want to leave treatment early on. Usually we try to get them to stay another day, try to redirect them. Sometimes, doing exposure things like, going out in nature, doing different things, and then getting to problem solving. Some clients we do have to set some limits with, and sometimes, especially if there's a conflict between two clients, then staff may have to kind of step in and take over and, make a decision. So depending on what's going on, it's still good to do the validation, offer some emotional support, but then we have to get to the problem, addressing what it is. So it's not that we're not addressing the crisis. It's just that we want to de-escalate the client first, and then help them figure out like what's the next right thing that they need to do for their recovery. So I want you to try this out. And we've got a couple people in the room. Those of you that are online, just think about something you don't want to do, right? I just think about what that is. I don't want to pay my taxes, whatever that is, something you don't want to do. And then just notice like what you're feeling like in your body in that resistant state. Like, this is something I really don't want to do. And knowing what that is, just imagine someone shows up and says, well, I can understand, Patrice, why you don't want to pay your taxes. But, the government really needs, to support people, whatever they're going to say, it's probably not, it's going to make me more angry. It could, right? Or it could just convey that, this isn't helping. You don't get it. Like, I really don't want to do this, right? I'm in this resistant place where my heels are dug in. I don't want to do it, right? Versus someone showing up with the emotion-focused approach. Well, I can understand why you don't want to pay your taxes, because, they've taken a lot of money, out of your paycheck, and, because you don't, you're having to work harder or, whatever that is. It's like, yeah, like now you're with me. Now you get it. Like, my resistance to doing this, to making this change or doing something that's actually healthy and necessary, and they're going to get their taxes one way or the other, right? It's not something that, me being angry about it and not wanting to do it doesn't change or take away from the fact that like this is something that I have to do, right? And a lot of times in recovery, what we're doing is we're introducing these skills that we know clients are going to have to do to stay sober, right? Whether that's go to meetings, get a sponsor, take drug screens, whatever that is, come to group. And sometimes they really don't want to do any of those things, but we know this is going to be life-saving for you. And we try to convince them to do it. And sometimes it's helpful to just like validate that you don't want to do it. I get it, right? If we can remember what it was like in early recovery, and we didn't want to do the things either. Just showing up and doing that first, and then moving to, and I still need you to go to group, right? Whatever that thing is, instead of getting in the battle with them, in the moment. Absolutely. Yeah. People feel seen, they feel heard. Now that I feel seen and heard, know that you're, because I don't trust people in the beginning, right? Like, you're trying to get me to stop doing the thing that's helped me cope within my life. And so that skill can really help you get, I think, further quicker in terms of building rapport. Like I said, helping people really feel seen and heard. And then, being able to offer that emotional support, that comfort, reassurance, togetherness, hope, and then the practical support. Now I can redirect you, or we can talk about the problem, or I can set this limit with you, this boundary, and it's done in a way that's very caring and supportive. I'm not the enemy, it's not us versus them, staff versus patient. It's like I've kind of, like you said, walked you down the elevator, gotten you to a place where you're hopefully more open and able to receive. And sometimes it might be like, let's have some time apart. Maybe you need space. I'm going to come back in 20 minutes or 30 minutes, whatever that designated time period is. So here's what this looks like. This one, I use the emotion of sadness. I can understand why you might feel sad, because you're going to miss out. Like, you're here in treatment, you're not going to be able to go on a leave or a pass for 30 days or 2 weeks or whatever that is, because you're really looking forward to being able to go to this thing, and because you don't know when you'll have another opportunity. So those 3 because statements, now this kind of heavy emotion, the sadness, the anger, the grief, it doesn't feel as heavy. And it's better to guess at one of these because statements than to like not do it. Because what I've found is clients will tell you, or they'll add on, and because blah, 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 so I'm getting more information, because I'm kind of going out on a limb and trying to put myself in your shoes and imagine like why this emotion is so intense for you right now. Even for us, it might not seem that intense, and this is really good too with teenagers. So if you're a parent, you have a teenager, you're young adult, like some of their emotions are just, it makes no sense, but then if you think about being that age and not being able to go to something with your friends or hang out, whatever that is, it makes sense. Even like I said, even if you're out of the ballpark, they'll redirect you and kind of put you back in the ballpark. So the emotional support, every emotion has a specific emotional need. So if someone is sad, being able to offer them comfort, it may not be a hug. It may be, can I just sit here with you? Getting their permission to like touch. Do you need a hug? What can I do? Anger, being able to help them communicate what they need. Because again, in that heightened emotional state, I can't access my frontal lobe to be able to know what I need. Do I need space? Do I need to set a boundary? Do I just need to let off steam and feel heard? Do I just need to vent? Anxiety, same thing, being able to offer some reassurance, or maybe helping them with grounding skills, teaching breathing techniques, meditation, relaxing, those types of things. And the validation is first. Same thing with the practical support. Once you offer the emotional support, then being able to give the directive that you need them to do. Because again, the key outcome is to increase cooperation, getting the client to kind of come along and do what it is that we're needing them to do in that moment. So emotion coaching is a way to transform pain. Most of the times, it's hard to sit with someone in pain. It might make you a little bit anxious or uncomfortable, but this is a way to kind of transform that. I kind of shared this earlier with the 3 because statements, even if another way to put this, instead of I can understand why you might feel, we can say I can imagine you might feel, because sometimes clients aren't able to name the emotion, they might just be kind of numb, and they disassociate. They are not connected to like the emotion. But it's there and we know it's there. And so this is another way to kind of connect with them in that moment and kind of give them the language. I can imagine, you might be feeling this. And then that allows them to kind of look inside to their internal experience and identify, like, is that what I'm feeling? Or that would make sense if I felt that. So if they don't have the language and they don't understand, they're not showing outwardly the emotion. So even with silence, you can validate, silence as well. So this works with not just emotions, but like some of the behaviors, that you might be seeing, being able to put an emotion, to that behavior and helping them see that there's other ways to express this emotion other than what you're doing right now. So with the doors kind of being open to support after the 3 because statements, I forgot something. So once you've done the 3 because, now that door is open for them to receive the support. Without the validation, just showing up and trying to offer support is like banging your head against a brick wall, because they're not able to access, that part of their brain, for logic and reasoning and problem solving, to be able to receive the information that you're giving them, the redirection that you're giving them, the reassurance that you're giving them. Like they can't, receive it. They can't act upon it. They can't use it because their limbic system is on fire and you just sound like wah, wah, wah. You know what I mean? So yeah, and that is very frustrating as a caregiver, supporter, whether you're in the faith community or the recovery community. We've probably been here where we felt like, banging our head against the wall, with certain clients. And so this technique is a way to back up, even if you realize like, oh, I went straight to support, let me back up and let me try to validate and come up with 3 because, because, and then go back to, giving the redirection or the reassurance or whatever that is. Usually more often than not, clients are able to come along with us, on the journey because we've connected with them in a way where probably a lot of people in their lives, like, have not validated, their experience, Once we can do that, I can understand why you'd want to use because, then they don't feel as much shame over that, because now you've given me 3 examples of like, this is why, I keep relapsing. This is why, recovery is hard. And that's that. So this works, like I said, with behaviors as well as emotions. So before I kind of get to like the little practical tips, I wanted to see if anybody has questions. If you have any questions, you can just drop those in the chat.
By using because to validate, you are bringing the prefrontal cortex back online. Question mark.
Yes.
Yeah. So can we elaborate in case people don't know what that means? Tie it back to the limbic hippocampus, bringing the
Sure.
prefrontal cortex back online.
Yes.
Or she may say something, but either
I
way.
can, so by using because, which is an analysis, you're activating the prefrontal cortex or reason. You're reflecting that, right? Is what you're saying, Patrice?
Yes, that's what
So
I'm
you're
saying.
trying to bring the prefrontal cortex back online to bring balance to the brain since the limbic system's taken over.
Exactly.
That's good. I like that. I hadn't heard it put that way before. I like that.
Yes, that is correct.
And
Any
of
other?
course, I love your diagram, banging your head here. I might have to have that.
My world, I'll be able to make it somewhere else just because you told me here. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go
Like
over
on the other
there.
side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so this kind of slide just shows if we just go straight to offering the support without the validation, usually people are stuck, their limbic system has taken over that part of the brain. So they're stuck there. It's not that they are resistant, especially trauma clients, if they get triggered, then yeah, you totally are, a threat or a danger. So being able to validate what's that emotional reaction that they're having, will help them. Because again, I'll back up to a couple of slides to answer this question. I know I went pretty quickly. I was just thinking about the time. Wait a second. That's not the easiest way to do this, is to go back here. Did I click it too fast? I'm sorry, you're going to capture all of this on.
It's okay.
You're recording. It's one of these slides. Why are they blank?
Let's do a tutorial on Zoom.
Yeah.
How to not echo a Zoom.
Might need to work on that aspect.
Where's my how button?
How to echo a Zoom. Do a whole video on that.
There it is, how. Okay. I probably should move this slide towards the end. But yes, so the how part. Are there other questions?
She's just talking about I actually will respond to that.
Okay. Yeah, so in the moment when I show up and I'm able to, the other key part of this, I can't stress this enough, is it's not just the verbal with saying, I can imagine you might feel, or I can understand why, because it's also my nonverbal signals. So if I'm frustrated and I'm using this technique, they're picking up on my tone and my facial expression and body language. And a lot of our clients, have some codependency issues, and and so then now, I'm gauging and I'm responding to your emotions, and so the nonverbals, thinking of your training and kind of being in a non-defensive posture, a calm, tone of voice, even if you need a minute, before you start to engage, with the client, take that minute, make sure that you take care of yourself, do some breathing so that you can show up, very calm, speaking in a way that doesn't convey any judgments or any of your emotions. And it's purely about, getting that client from this top floor of the elevator, walking them down, to a place where now they can take, your direction, right? And so, and again, to answer that question, it promotes the brain building activity to create that connection between the frontal lobe and the limbic system. So I'm showing up to offer the support, and I'm acting as a temporary co-regulator, because the client is very emotionally dysregulated. They don't have the capacity to regulate their emotions. So me showing up, using the validation first with the 3 because, each one of those because statements acts as a way to like calm them, regulating their emotions, releasing that oxytocin from their brain. And then over time, they then themselves to develop the ability to or increase their capacity to self-regulate. So that's how it works.
Dr. Colson, you said MI says we create resistance. I think I know what you mean by that, but did you want to, you're saying potentially?
Right, what MI says is that, it's what Patrice is talking about, that when we try to offer support before we do affirmation or validation, reflection, that we actually create resistance. Resistance is us pushing the client and the client pushing back. And so the more we do what she's saying, the less resistance we create. Does that make sense?
Correct.
That's what MI says.
Yeah.
Yes.
As she was going through that, my in my brain went off because like
Yeah, my MI.
and so I was thinking about the whole like you talking about it, some of these because statements. To me, I start thinking, well, you're trying to create change talk. You're trying to get them to start to not only de-escalate it emotionally, because like you said, nothing rational happens when you're, in any kind of heightened emotional state, but that how do I get them to then start talking more? So the because statement to me is like, you said something about even if I get it wrong,
Yes.
like they're gonna, at least you're getting them talking.
Correct.
Right? You're getting them to talk more. And so the resistance piece, like the phrase we always said was, what is it? Roll with resistance.
Roll
like
with
you
it.
take the resistance and you move with it, but creating it yourself, that's why you got to have the because instead of the but.
Correct.
Because there is the opportunity for them to elaborate more or feel heard
Yes.
or want to respond. I had a client who run it recently, and right before they came in, the family was like, well, he wants to drive himself there. And like, we just can't let that happen. And so I had to kind of coach them in. It's like, okay, is him driving himself to treatment like the thing that you're gonna like dig your heels in on? Yeah. Right? Because he's probably pushing back on doing that because you're making it a big deal. Watch, like try backing off of it and see if he just like doesn't carry it, right? Yeah. At that resistance piece, the image I always was given was like you and the client, you got your hands together. Instead of you trying to push them, let them push, but you walk backwards to where you want them to go. Yeah. And they feel like, okay, I'm in control. I'm controlling here, but you're kind of guiding them in a place that maybe that will help them get to where they want to be. So anyways.
Absolutely.
Take over here.
Yeah. And to the family, like being able to use this with them. Well, I can understand why you don't want him to drive himself to treatment, because you don't trust that he's actually going to come to treatment, because you're afraid, that he might go off and use and you won't hear from him again.
Just like last time.
Yeah, because. And then all of a sudden that family member is not so fist clenched, like it has to be this way,
This stuff isn't exclusive to clients and people who just
No.
You can use it with your family.
You can use it with anyone. Yeah, it really is, a great skill. That's why I titled it like it's a core skill that definitely will help with that transformation process, getting a person from, here to there.
She's excited to go. Great job. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I did rush through these because of the time. So let me get back to the end slide here. I'm going too fast. Let's jump right into this. Too many things open. All right, so some practical tips as we close. the validation part is critical, and it being a two-step process. So again, it's targeted with strategy, at heart, because again, you making sure that your nonverbals, are matching the verbals, I'm here, I get it, I care, I'm concerned, and kind of, I need to get you to move along in your journey. So you get to go through an open door, and it is a little bit like playing like darts or whack-a-mole. Like, you don't have to get it right. So that's the main thing, is because even like your guessing is better than just going straight to support. So just remembering that. Use tentative language that's grounded in sincerity. Again, the best guesses are more effective than questions, because that's the other part of our training. Naturally, we go to asking those open-ended questions, trying to get them engaged, but being able to validate and do, all the other things that's in our toolboxes, it will just get further, quicker with clients. So we want to work towards approaching our nonverbals for maximum effectiveness. So making sure that matches, and practicing this, because our brain will default to our go-to. When I ask, like, what's your go-to? Like, do you go straight to like fixing it? Do you go straight to offering the reassurance? You like a good listener, and it maybe take you some time. You need to reflect and process before you like re-engage. Like, being aware and knowing what your go-to is in these situations, because that is how you're going to show up. And incorporating this and adding this to your toolbox, you do need to like practice it. So you can practice it like on anybody, and just kind of like try it out. So that is the end of the talk.
That was great. Thank you.